So today I'm going to be talking a bit about an issue that I see come up all the time and a kind of dilemma that people have in relationships where they're trying to figure out who to blame for the problems in the relationship. And it's going to be based on a little story event that I found on another page that I follow. And I'll see, actually, I might be able to do a screen share. Is that a possible thing? Where does that happen? No. Thought I could do that. And now my mouse is frozen. Okay. So there's this little narrative, right? And here's how it looks. There was a cartoon that I saw, and it was like a series of pictures of these stick figures, this man and this woman, going through the different stages of their relationship. And I've seen this many times before, and it starts off just the man and the woman, their girlfriend and boyfriend. And the woman says, I want to get married. And the man says, okay. And then the next frame, she says, I want kids. And the man says, okay. And then in the next frame, they've got kids, right? And it plays out a series of scenarios in chronological order. Then it shows the man, going off to work, and it shows him doing the yard work, mowing the grass and fixing things around the house and giving her bags of money, And it shows her just kind of chilling and drinking wine with her friends as she raised the kids, because apparently that's how easy it is to raise kids, And then you see her like berating him for not bringing in big enough bags of money and not doing enough work, and he just sort of sighs and like ups his game and tries to meet her increasingly unreasonable demands. And then it shows, somebody at her work hitting on her, right? And then she starts cheating on the husband in his marital bed. And then he finds out about it, and she blames him for it. And then she divorces him, and she gets all the stuff and all the kids, and then she turns the kids against the guy, and then the kids don't love him anymore, and he's just alone and miserable in this apartment all by himself. And it's, and that's the end of the story. And it's a very typical red pill narrative around marriage. And I see variations of this happen all the time. Basically, one of the partners is doing all the hard work. They're the good one in the story. They're the hero. And they end up losing. So they're the victim hero, as some of you have heard me talk about before. And there's a female to male narrative on this one as well. Or this is heterosexual. I'm assuming there's a gay narrative for this as well. But where, the man, he does his 9 to 5, and then he goes drinking and golfing with his buddies and watching porn and using hookers, while she's like busting her ass with the kids, and she asks for just a little morsel of love or just a little morsel of support, and he's like, nah, fuck you, I've done my bit. And she just kind of ends up all miserable, while he just has a party and blames her for everything. There's that narrative as well. I haven't seen it done in picture format, but I've certainly seen it talked about in posts, and I've had people talk about it in person with me as well. So there's these narratives where I'm the good guy, they're the bad guy, I'm doing everything I can, they're dragging their heels, and in the end I lose, even though I did everything right. Any of you familiar with that narrative? Have any of you heard that one before? I just want to check that this is working, because I hate it when I talk to myself for a long time. So if any of you are watching live, please let me know. Comment, like, say something, so I know that this is working. I'm going to assume it is working. Now, when I saw the cartoon version of the guy one, you cycle, there's quite a few frames. It goes all the way to this disaster at the end. And then all I could do was cycle back to the start, right back to the beginning of that narrative. The first frame where she says, I want to get married, and he just says, okay. And I was like, there. That's the problem. Not getting married. That's not the problem. But the way it starts, this passive, weak person giving in to the demands of the other person, doing what will make them happy rather than like initiating it and leading it himself in his own time, and so on. Like that was beautifully represented, that frame. I want marriage. Okay. He just says okay. Right? He doesn't say, well, actually, I'm not quite ready yet, or we need to discuss some boundaries before that happens. None of that. He just says okay. I want kids. Okay. He doesn't say how he feels about having kids, and so on. And it represents a kind of guy, doesn't it? A kind of guy who just passively follows and eats shit along the way. And throughout the frame, even though her behavior is reprehensible, he just keeps eating it, tolerating it. No boundaries, no pushback, no spine, no balls to speak of whatsoever. And yet, the irony when I see this in the red pill communities is they think this is a narrative about the woman being the bad guy, right? They think, see, this is how women are. No matter how good the guy is, the woman, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, how good the guy is? This spineless coward. No. And I say that with all love, because I've been that guy, right? So, he's not the hero in this story. Heroes aren't spineless. Heroes don't just follow some narcissist into hell. Heroes don't just eat shit all the way along calling themselves a nice person. That's not a hero. He's not the good guy in this story. There are no good guys in this story. This is just two traumatized, wounded people playing it out until disaster occurs. In the end where she's got the guy from work and she's got all the kids, you think she's happy. She's not. She really is narcissistic or just severely emotionally kind of stunted. Her life isn't happy either. And the guy that she's cheating on, with from work, he's in for a nightmare himself. The story doesn't end here with her getting everything and the other guy having nothing. They all lose. Everybody's suffering. Everybody's miserable in this narrative. And I see the same thing. I see it quite a lot in Czech culture, actually, which is very old school kind of misogyny culture, which is the guy goes to work, he does his 9 to 5, he gets drunk with his mates at the pub. The woman does everything. All the childcare, all the cooking and cleaning, all the house maintenance, all the organising and the doctor visits and everything. Now, this isn't every family, but because the guy's bringing in the income, it's like, job done. He's done his 50%, apparently. Even if he likes his job, even if it's easy, and he has all this free time, all this social time and everything, and it's basically all on the woman to do everything, with some exceptions, and I'm generalizing. But the whole time, there was a classic case, I won't name the person, but someone we know, where she had 2 kids, and this guy just, when he wasn't working, he was just playing video games, and these 2 kids were difficult. I mean, with parents like this, they're going to end up with difficult kids. And, the mother was just depressed and drinking just to handle these kids, and the guy did nothing at all, literally nothing. I think once he looked after the kids for a couple of hours because mum had to go to hospital. That's it. He doesn't do any looking after the kids, no cooking, nothing, no cleaning, nothing. This mum's just on 24/7. Having one kid between 2 of us, I know that is fucking nightmarish. She's basically a single mother. With 2 kids, she had no other support, no grandparents, nothing, out in this little village. Just isolated and just drowning. But the thing is, I don't see her as the victim in this story. I definitely think he's a piece of shit. But I look at her and I'm like, you stayed with him for how long? Long enough to have 2 kids. You went that far. Are you going to take responsibility for that choice at some point? It's interesting, I met her for the first time. I'd only heard the story third hand, and I met her for the first time the other day. And you can just see her just this very highly anxious, highly stressed person, very sort of nasty and negative towards the kid that she had with her at the time. And I'm like, you're not the hero of the story. That's not what heroes look like. Call me judgmental, but heroes aren't nasty to their kids. They aren't. So, she's not the hero. Is she the victim? I don't know. If you're able to leave at any point, if right back at the start when you were dating this guy and he was probably still a dick, he hasn't suddenly become something. He's always been one. Did you have to keep doing that? No. the reason I bring all this up is because it is so common, even in relatively healthy relationships or relationships that have good potential, where it isn't one of the people as some extreme narcissist. They might look that way, they might be described as that way, but odds are if you heard their side of the story, you'd think actually they got some points to make too. What's more likely is that you started to feel trapped by your own decision making. Your commitments, your obligations, your loyalty to the partner, you forgot at some point that was a choice. And that it's always been a choice, that every minute of every day that you've ever been with your partner is freely chosen. There's no force involved whatsoever. Even if you got 20 kids together and a joint mortgage on your house, still no force. There are still always alternate options. Not great options, perhaps. Once, the deeper you get in, the more limited your options are. But the option of leaving is always there. I mean, worst case scenario, you could be homeless if you really wanted to leave. You could do it. But you don't. So why you blame your partner for your decision making is baffling. We all do it. I've done it myself. That sense of feeling trapped, feeling unfairly punished, of feeling like you got the raw end of the deal. It's like, dude, what deal? You're not actually committed beyond your own decision making. So anytime in the past where you chose to stay with your partner, even in the face of poor behaviour on their part, mistreatment and disrespect on their part, if that is what indeed happened or it's just your perspective, doesn't matter. If you chose to stay at that point, then you're signed up for everything that happens from that point onwards. Right? It's like if you sign a contract and you don't read the fine print. Well, it doesn't matter what's in that fine print, you signed the contract. Except this isn't a legal contract. Even a marriage, well, technically it's a legal contract. You still there's escape clauses. You can still get out. Even if you're going to lose half your stuff, that's still an option. And if we dial all the way back to the start, like I did with that cartoon, we go all the way back to the start where he says okay to her asking to get married. There's actually a few frames before that weren't drawn, which is he was attracted to her in the first place. That was on him. He chose her. Even if she did all the initiating and all the work, as what often happens with nice guys, they're chosen by their partners, not the other way around. He still said yes. He still signed up to the very first romantic initiative or contact. His attraction decided this for him, not her. She didn't decide this. So if you feel pressured into anything, any kind of commitment, marriage, kids, or whatever, you just have to notice that even if you were persuaded, you weren't forced. I bet there is nobody watching this right now who was in some way forced into the commitments that they have. Right? Gun to your head, your family dies if you don't. I have a bomb, I will set it off if you don't continue. None of you went through that. Basically, you were offered and you said yes. And you didn't have to. Right? Sure, there would have been perhaps an unpleasant, uncomfortable situation if you did say no. But that's all. You wouldn't have died. There wasn't a force here. Now, you can't help that you are the current day receiver of your previous decisions. I often think of like my current self as being handed a life by my previous selves, and whatever disaster and chaos they caused, I'm just like, it's just dumped on my lap. That can be a way to like figure out where you're at. You figure like, what if I was just dropped into this life right now? What would I think of it? If I wasn't like obliged to any of it, would I be like, do I continue with that? Do I stop this? You don't have to continue with anything. You're not actually committed because you didn't make the commitments. Your previous selves did. You had no say in it. Perhaps if you had had a say in it, you would have demurred, you would have said, no, actually, you should see how this turns out. Don't sign up to this, right? It's like I remember once a sales guy got me when I was coming out of a pub. I was day drunk at university, and he signed me up to this horrendous phone plan. because I was all drunk and I just wanted to be mates with him. And then the next day I woke up and I looked at the fine print. I'm like, oh, what the fuck? I just put myself into poverty for a phone. And I got a real sense in that moment, like, shit, that wasn't me. That was him. That was drunk Dan that made that decision. Why am I beholden to his decision? I actually went to the phone company and said, that was really unethical on your part. You signed up a drunk dude. Get me out of this thing. Which they did with a lot of hassle. But it's not on the phone company. It was my previous self that made that call, and then my current self has to deal with it. But I was able in that moment to see my current self as a separate entity who can remake decisions, who can cut obligations and ties. And if he doesn't, then he is actually signing up again. It's almost like that phone contract was put in front of me again sober. It said, you still want to sign up? And this time I said no. And it was this realization, I can do that with any prior commitment. Right. What I'm trying to make a point here is not like, oh, you should just break up with your partner if things are rough. Absolutely not. If you've got a great partner and you're both facing in the same direction, and you can see from your past that you actually have a really good connection, things have just deteriorated and it could get better, it could be fixed. There's evidence for that. As opposed to like they've actually always been a terrible partner and you just refuse to acknowledge it. Your first thing is you have to say, well, I'm continuing to make the choice to stay. I made all the choices that led me to this moment. Whatever resentment or bitterness or pain that I'm feeling is self-inflicted injuries. Right? No matter what she said or done, she could have cheated on you with all of your best friends. You were still the one who stayed with her after the first cheating. You're still the one who stayed with her when she started being cold to you. You're still the one that stayed with her when she was flirting with her ex. Right? These are all self-inflicted injuries. No matter how horrible her behavior is, you chose her, you stayed with her, you signed up for it. And for most of you, you're not actually with a narcissist, even though you could describe her or him like that to other people. Odds are, if I were to hear their side of the story, you would sound absolutely as bad as you make them sound. So you've both done this. You've both eaten shit from each other, and now you're in this resentful, bitter, they are the enemy, it's their fault place. But both of you need to realize if you're in a shit relationship, it is your fault. But more importantly, it's your responsibility to either fix it or end it. So you're either going to work with them on this, or you're going to move on without them. And if you're like, I'm not going without them, then you are signing up to whatever is happening. You're on board with it. You are condoning it. And you've got to work with that. And at least from that perspective, you can make powerful decisions, right? Without feeling like this weak victim hero. You can be an actual hero. Who goes, okay, I'm going to make the most of this. It's all on me. I signed up for this. Or, you know what? We can't make this work. They're not on board. I can't be the only one pulling the weight, so I'm out. Either way, you can have a powerful movement forward. In this perspective of, it is my fault because I made all the decisions. I signed up for all of this. Therefore, no matter what's happening, is a choice that I've made, or based on a choice that I made, even if it's their behaviour. At least that way you can go forward healthy and with some respect for yourself, and the resentment will go away, or at least it will be pointed at the right person, right? And motivate you to do something, because when you resent your partner, it's a powerless, flaccid feeling, like what can you do about them? Nothing. So you resent them, but they're not changing, or they're not changing the way you want them to, or at the pace that you want them to, and you just get this boiling powerlessness. But it's because you think they're the problem. It's you. It's always been you. And that applies to me and anybody else. Hopefully that helps and doesn't just upset you. We'll see how it goes. And I'll be in touch next time for the next one.